Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Budget and Tax Committee, February 3rd, public hearing. We have 10 bills today, and we're going to start with Senate Bill, just reminders. One, for those in the viewing public, we'll have members who will get on and off of this particular call because they need to go testify over in other committees on their other bills. Also, in terms of timing, the sponsor will have whatever time they need to introduce the bill, and then their first sponsor witness will have 5 minutes, and the remainder of witnesses will have 2.5. Same for the opposition. If there's opposition, 5 minutes for their first sort of main witness. And I think that is it. And our first bill today is Senator Pinsky, Chairman Pinsky, Senate Bill 511, Corporate Tax Fairness Act 2021. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is not a new bill, and many of you are very familiar with it. It's the Corporate Tax Fairness Act, and it essentially tries to close a tax dodge that's been used by a number of companies in the state. It's costing our state, if you include both the combined reporting and the throwback, approximately $150 million a year. If we would have had this for 12 years, we would have paid for the Kerwin Commission all 10 years. It's very simple, and I have experts who can explain it better than I. But essentially, a large corporation sets up subsidiaries, and then they buy goods or services from another state, and they get billed. And at the end of the day, the company in Maryland shows either no taxable income, no profit, or maybe even a loss, while the company they bought the goods or services from in another state clearly makes a lot of money, but the parent company is the big winner. But the big loser is the state of Maryland because they've been able to shift their tax liability to other states. That's essentially what happens now. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're a small business, even a medium-sized business, you don't get to do this. You don't have the resource to do this. You don't have a large corporation and many subsidiaries. So it actually puts Maryland businesses at a disadvantage because the large corporations, and we're talking about multi-state, multinational corporations. We're not talking about mom and pop. And in fact, of the 25 largest corporations, it looks like 7 uses tax dodge. So about a third or so, or depending on the category, are using this. Not even the largest corporations are using it. They're paying their fair share. And I think we know that for our constituents who pay income tax, they can't use a tax dodge. They can't shift income to another state. But yet these corporations do, and the state of Maryland loses. 29 states use this, either combined reporting or have gross receipts tax. And you have the list in front of you, and we're talking Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Utah, West Virginia. We're not just talking liberal blue states, we're talking red states, and many have had it for 15 or 30 years. So, and none of them have gone backwards. In fact, more states have adopted combined reporting. I would hate for Maryland to be the last one where we're seen as gullible rubes who allow ourselves to be taken advantage of. Now, look, you're going to hear the same arguments from the chamber, and you're going to hear 3 arguments. One, that it's too difficult to do this. Well, the fact is these same large corporations are putting in taxes on combined reporting in 29 other states. They're already doing this. This would not be a new onerous responsibility for them. We'll also be told that the revenue is uneven and it's unstable. Well, isn't that true of all of our revenue and taxation? Doesn't it shift? We see that now, obviously, with the pandemic. And we'll also be told there are winners and losers. Well, if you look at the tax code in Maryland, there are winners and there are losers. So the arguments they have are just laughable. So the question becomes, do we want to recoup the $150 or so million each year to help pay for broad levels of government? I can tell you my constituents, working in middle income family, have no problem with closing corporate loopholes. They have no problem. And I think surveys would show 8 out of every 10 or 9 out of every 10 support that. So, for the life of me, I continue to look for why we don't do this. Why we allow these corporations to take advantage of not only take advantage of our tax policy, but where we allow some large, many medium, and all the small businesses from getting an unfair disadvantage because others can reduce their cost of their product or service by 3 or 5 or 8% based on the money they're saving by not paying any taxes. I've explained it before. That's sort of it in a nutshell. I'm going to stop with that. I'll be happy to take questions or wait till the panel's done. My first witness is Michael Masroff, who's a tax expert from Washington, D.C., who you've heard before. You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Masroff, you can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Michael Masroff, Senior Fellow with the State Fiscal Policy Division of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities in DC. This center is a nonpartisan research and policy institute that pursues federal, and state policies designed to reduce poverty and inequality and to restore fiscal responsibility in equitable and effective ways. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of SB 511, Senator Pinsky's bill to mandate the use of combined reporting. I've been coming to Annapolis to testify in support of combined reporting bills for more than 10 years. And as Senator just noted, while Maryland has failed to act on this essential reform, many other states have moved ahead. At present, 28 states and the District of Columbia mandate combined reporting. That's well more than half of the 45 states for which it's relevant. Combined reporting remains an essential tax policy reform for Maryland if it's to have a fair and robust corporate income tax. Year in and year out, the state suffers significant erosion of its corporate tax base because of corporate tax avoidance techniques that exploit the absence of combined reporting. There are several abusive tax avoidance strategies to which non-combined reporting states are vulnerable, and most of them can't be stopped at all through any policy change other than combined reporting. So let me give you one example, which goes by the name of entity isolation. That strategy is used when, for example, an out-of-state manufacturer with Maryland sales needs to have some physical presence in Maryland, but the manufacturing itself is done outside the state. The corporation forms a separate subsidiary to employ the people that must enter Maryland, but the profit on the sale in Maryland of the manufactured items themselves remain locked in the out-of-state manufacturing arm that Maryland can't tax because of a federal law that bars the state from taxing companies that only solicit sales here. Entity isolation is corporate tax avoidance 101. It's perfectly legal, and it prevents Maryland from taxing profits that are earned through sales to Maryland customers. So over the many years that the adoption of combined reporting has been considered here, members of this committee have undoubtedly heard claims that it would discourage corporations from investing in the future in the state and perhaps even causing corporations here already to leave. And there's simply no support for such claims. Several years ago, I looked at Maryland's largest 120 corporations. I found that a large majority of them had maintained facilities in multiple combined reporting states. 3/4 of them had facilities in 5 or more combined reporting states, and fully 32 of them maintained their headquarters in combined reporting states. More recently, I looked at the record of combined reporting states in retaining manufacturing jobs. 4 of the 5 states with the highest rate of manufacturing job growth over the 10 years preceding the pandemic required combined reporting throughout the entire period, as did the state with the highest rate of manufacturing job growth, which was Michigan. 21 states with corporate income taxes experienced at least 10% manufacturing job growth over the past 10 years, and 11 of the 21 had combined reporting in effect throughout the period. In short, there's no obvious correlation between a state's adoption of combined reporting and its relative success in attracting or retaining the most potentially footloose firms and their jobs. The committee will also undoubtedly be reminded today by opponents of the bill that pro forma combined reporting returns that were required to be filed during the Great Recession showed 2 years in which combined reporting supposedly would have generated less corporate income tax revenue for the state than the current tax structure would have. That was the deepest recession since the Great Depression, and whether that experience would be replicated in future recessions is subject to considerable doubt. Without getting into the weeds, I would just point out that the fiscal note on this bill shows that the revenue that will be generated in a single year of combined reporting in a non-recession year will be about twice as large as the 2-year revenue shortfall shown in the pro forma data for tax years 2008 and 2009 under the so-called Finnegan version of combined reporting, which is what SB 511 provides for. So in other words, if the state put into its rainy day fund just half of the revenue generated by combined reporting in a single year, it would be enough to compensate for the shortfall that supposedly would have occurred in the Great Recession, even assuming it in fact would have. Having adequate reserves is the appropriate strategy for dealing with the inherent volatility of state corporate income taxes, not foregoing a policy that's essential to ensuring that some of the most profitable corporations in the United States pay their fair share. The enactment of combined reporting can make an important contribution to preserving Maryland's tax base from further erosion and ensuring, as the senator said, that multi-state corporations compete on a level playing field, both with wholly in-state corporations and with other multi-state corporations that don't seek to push the tax avoidance envelope. It will also generate significant additional revenue with which to finance public investments in education as proposed in the bill. These kinds of investments are critical to Maryland's economic future, and they benefit Maryland businesses as well as Maryland families. Maryland's adoption of combined reporting is long overdue. I therefore urge the committee to favorably report SB 511. I thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Ashley Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Ashley Watson, and I am a case management specialist at DJS, Department of Juvenile Services, Cheltenham Youth Detention Facility. I'm a proud member of AFSCME Local 3167 and a mom. I thank you for the opportunity to come before the committee to speak in support of Senate Bill 511, the Corporate Tax Fairness Act of 2021. As it stands today, big corporations are able to take advantage of loopholes and sometimes avoid paying any Maryland taxes at all. This is not fair to residents like myself and small businesses who pay our fair share for our services we all count on. We need to hold these corporations accountable, ensure that they are contributing their fair share to our state's budget. Closing corporate loopholes and investing more in our communities, we can also reduce the increasing concentration of wealth and power in a few hands and lower barriers that hold too many Marylanders back economically. By holding corporations accountable, we will have the ability to generate additional revenue that could be invested back into our state communities. It will also assist in addressing the continuing issue that I face as a state employee every day, working in one of Maryland's state agencies, trying to do more with less. When there are not enough resources allotted to public services like my agency, it leads to understaffing and things of that nature. That means that people are stretched thin for doing extra work to make up for these vacancies. This has become the norm. During the pandemic, there was and continues to be a lack of resources to keep me and my coworkers safe as we provide these necessary services to Maryland's youth. Most importantly, closing corporate tax loopholes will provide revenue to support the things working families like mine need to provide for our families and their futures. Investing in these basic strengths, our economy can dismantle the economic barriers that often hold back Maryland's working families. Senate Bill 511 aims to do just that, to move our state in the right direction by holding corporations accountable and making them pay their fair share. I thank you for your time and ask you to support Senate Bill 511.
Thank you very much. I can't quite tell who is actually supposed to be testifying on the next is Ned Altwater or Jen Brock Cancellieri.
Mr. Chairman, I thought it was Jen Rock Consigliere, but I don't see.
It's Ned Altwater.
Yes.
He's here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Thank you, Senator Lipinski.
Trevor, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk about fair taxation. My name is Ned Altwater, and I am the owner of Altwater's Traditional Foods. We're a bakery restaurant. We're based in Baltimore. We have 5 locations, and pre-pandemic, we had 200 employees. We have about 120 now, but we're growing back to where we were. We are an open book company, and that means that all of our employees know exactly where all of our money comes from, and they know where all of it goes. And once in a while, someone will comment about the taxes we pay. And I always respond that paying income taxes is a good thing because it means we're profitable and we're still in business. If we and everyone else pay our fair share, the playing field is level, and as a result, we all enjoy the services that taxes pay for. Our staff know that we are competing against every other restaurant in town, but if we follow our training and get better every day, we will be successful. What they may not know is that some of our restaurant competitors that are part of national chains do not pay much income tax in Maryland because of our tax loopholes. These businesses can shift their profits to more favorable states while leaving their stores in our neighborhoods. Our staff ask a lot of questions about finance that I can answer. But if they ask me why we would subsidize our competitors, I don't have an answer for that. So I urge you to please support in favor of Bill SB 511. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think that ends the favorable panel. So if there are questions for the senator or his panel? Anyone? Okay. Next up, on the unfavorable, Andrew Griffin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Andrew Griffin. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce and our more than 5,000 member businesses and federated partners. We are here in opposition to Senate Bill 511, combined reporting and the throwback rule. Like the senator who introduced the bill discussed, this has been introduced year over year, and you're familiar with a lot of the points. And so I want to just hit on a couple of the high ones. One, the way combined reporting works, it assigns an apportionment factor to the income earned in Maryland. That apportionment factor may lead to a company paying more than or less than the tax they should be paying. Because of that, you commonly hear us say that it's not an accurate way of determining taxes for a company. Another item that was touched on is that Maryland companies already operate in states that utilize combined reporting. Yes, a lot of Maryland companies do operate in those states, but the overwhelming feedback that we receive is that states that have instituted combined reporting do it as part of a comprehensive review of their tax structure. That's not what's being done here. Here, combined reporting and throwback rule are simply just being layered on to our current tax scheme. An example would be Maryland currently uses an add-back provision. States that have instituted combined reporting with an add-back provision see very little, if any, revenue increase at all. The add-back provision essentially is a method of combined reporting, and so you don't see a lot of revenue increase there. The other item I would raise, and we've talked about it in the past, is Maryland recently changed to a single sales factor. We don't know yet how that interacts here with either combined reporting or with throwback rule. And single sales factor is not fully phased in, I believe, until next year. So we would urge, watching to see what that does to tax collection and tax payment before we change schemes. And finally, you guys know, but I just want to touch on it again, the recommendations made to this committee by the Maryland Business Tax Commission Review Commission were to combined reporting was not appropriate for Maryland. It was touched on the comptroller study done where we did see volatile reports in revenue. And this committee, I believe, even in the past has reported combined reporting out unfavorably. And so with that, I'll just conclude. Obviously, this is a very sensitive time and difficult time for Maryland businesses of all sizes. I think instituting a new tax scheme adds additional uncertainty, which wouldn't really be appropriate for the current anemic economic recovery we're experiencing. And we know at the Chamber that that's not the what this committee is trying to do for the business community. And so I'll stop there, urge an unfavorable report, and I'm happy to answer any questions I may be able to.
Thank you. Gene Berner. Gene here?
He is.
This is Gene. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm not sure what happened to the video. You're probably lucky in that category. But 45 years ago, I staffed this committee. And who would have thought 45 years later we'd be doing a Zoom testimony? It's just an amazing time. But since 45 years is a long time, I've seen many of these issues, but the one thing that I want to call your attention to is Senate Bill 511 has two distinct different parts. One is throwback, one is combined reporting. You've heard the testimony on combined reporting. I need to address throwback because there's some misunderstanding about it. First of all, it solely singles out manufacturers and warehousing. So it's not services, it's only tangible property manufactured in Maryland or shipped out of Maryland. One. Two, it has no distinction between large, small, or medium. So this bill will directly impact any manufacturer anywhere in Maryland that makes a product and ships it out of state. And that could be someone in Allegheny County shipping it to Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, wherever. If they're not taxable in that state, that firm, that manufacturer is going to be penalized by throwback right away, because this bill would put the tax on all those sales in another state when they're not taxed there because that person doesn't have any physical presence. So I just wanted to alert you to the fact that this is a two-part bill. The first part of it, beginning on page 4, is throwback. And we're the Manufacturers Alliance of Maryland, whom I represent, are strongly opposed to that aspect of this bill, simply because it affects any manufacturer and warehousing, and that's not what you want to discourage in the state of Maryland. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Sean Looney.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Sean Looney from Comcast NBC Universal. Pleasure to see all of you. A little bit nervous today because I have my mayor, my county executive, and my state senator all listening. So I'm gonna have to be on my best behavior. But yeah, I personally have been talking about this issue for 18 years now. I don't think anyone has heard anything new, either for or against this bill, but I just want to hit on a couple of points and more reminders. The fact that some companies take advantage of combined reporting and some do not is just a reminder that there are winners and losers with combined reporting. And I'm happy to see we've evolved away from the talking point from probably about 15 years ago when many of the progressive Maryland, in fact, say the combined reporting is the magic bullet, and all we have to do is pass this bill and all of our fiscal woes will be taken care of. We now know that's not true. Corporate income tax is a very, very small part of the revenues that come into the state of Maryland. We talk about other states that have adopted combined reporting, and I will stress that you just can't look at the fact that they have combined reporting and look at any kind of investment or job locations or headquarter locations. I think we have to look at what have other states done to make up for the disadvantage of combined reporting and how it impacts large multi-state companies and multinational companies. So, and I know Senator King can take credit several years ago to remind people the Maryland General Assembly decided to do just that. Take a look at combined reporting as part of the total picture of taxation. And it was a 2-year bipartisan study. A lot of witnesses, a lot of data, a lot of information was brought in. And at the end of that 2-year study, this bipartisan commission said, you know what, it is not a good idea to do combined reporting at this time. So, and I don't know, especially in this fraught economic time, if this is the right time to bring in such a drastic tax change either. So again, if we want to open up the Pandora's box again and look at what other states have done in addition to combined reporting, like lower the corporate income tax rate, things like that, I think it's worth discussion, but we just can't look at combined reporting in isolation. So we know that in slower economies, the state will get less revenue from combined reporting. The thing we don't know is if you were to establish combined reporting, what amount of revenue would be lost due to companies changing their behavior.
Mr. Looney, if you could wrap up, you hit the time.
Okay, sure. So, the only thing I just want to close with is that I don't think it's a sustainable long-term economic plan to target large companies. They bring so much jobs and investment to the state. I don't think now is the time to penalize those large companies. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Sarah Price.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the committee. My name is Sarah Price, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association. As my colleagues have noted, combined reporting and the throwback rule are not consistent or reliable methods for determining a business's income tax. As has been noted, the implementation of combined reporting has been explicitly recommended against in Maryland, and none of our neighboring states use a throwback rule. In fact, the New Jersey General Assembly actually repealed their throwback rule within a decade of implementing it based on a study that it commissioned that found that the throwback rule does not more fairly measure a corporation's business activities in a state. Indiana also repealed its throwback rule with the express intent of promoting a more friendly business environment in the state. As we approach the 1-year mark of restrictions resulting from COVID-19, imposing unreliable new tax structures is the last thing we should be considering right now. Thank you for your consideration, and we urge an unfavorable report.
Thank you very much. Last on the list is Stephanie Dew.
Afternoon, Chair Gazone and members of the committee. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you are all safe and doing well. My name is Stephanie Doe. I'm a senior tax counsel at the Council on State Taxation, also known as COST. We are a nonprofit trade association based in Washington, D.C., and have an independent membership of over 500 multi-jurisdictional corporations, many of which who do business in Maryland. We oppose this bill, and you have my written testimony detailing why this bill should move forward. I know that this committee has debated whether combined reporting is right or wrong policy decision for quite some time, but this committee hasn't considered combined reporting under a global pandemic. And I urge you to look at Maryland's own Business Tax Reform Commission report for guidance and insights. The report recommended that the General Assembly not adopt combined reporting, and the report is still exceptionally relevant today. First, the report states that combined reporting introduces uncertainty at a time when the economy is struggling to recover from a recent recession. I think this is still especially true today. These are already uncertain times, and combined reporting only augments this uncertainty. And not all taxes are equally volatile. Corporate income tax tends to be the most volatile source of tax revenue, and Maryland's own commission has equally found similar uncertainty and volatility. To add to boot, this would add significant administrative and compliance burdens to taxpayers and the state at a time when there is limited bandwidth to deal with this. Second, no one questions that combined reporting creates winners and losers. You can say, who cares? But depending on the distribution of these winners and losers, combined reporting may have a negative impact on certain Maryland industry sectors and also the overall economy. This is heightened by the finding that combined reporting has been found to reduce economic growth, especially when the tax rate exceeds 8%, which Maryland does at 8.25%. Lastly, within picking winners and losers, combined reporting may damage specific industries that are already reeling from this pandemic. I strongly urge this committee to issue an unfavorable report, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Questions for those in opposition? Anybody from the committee? Senator Young.
Yes, thank you. As far as selecting winners and losers, it appears to me right now the losers are the local companies and the winners are the ones that are transferring their profits back to their home state. Tell me how, when 28 states and DC have combined reporting already, and they are getting the taxes from the profits from those companies that are portion of the companies located in Maryland, how does it increase the tax burden on any Marylander that a corporation is paying the profits on Maryland's business in Maryland as opposed to paying them elsewhere? I get that claim every year. I've never heard anybody explain how it's doing that.
Do you want to direct that to any of the particular witnesses or just anybody who wants to jump in?
Anyone that thinks they can answer it.
Somebody?
I will only say that I'm not a tax expert, so I will not, but I can get that answer for you, Senator Young. We do have tax experts that we work with on these issues, so I'll be happy to get that answer for you.
Okay, every year that we've had this combined reporting bill, that claim has been made, but I've never seen anybody produce anything to show how it's true. So I would like to see that.
Sure, and just for my sake, Senator, exactly what is the question that you want answered? So I want to make sure I get this right.
Two things. Everybody claims there are winners and losers. As I see it, the losers are the small businesses in Maryland that are already paying the taxes. The winners are the big companies that aren't paying those taxes in Maryland, but are transferring them back. The other question is, each year I hear the claim that it's an additional tax burden. Well, I don't see that it's a tax burden on anyone in Maryland. I see that for the company, it might be a tax burden in that they're having to pay Maryland taxes on the share of the business they did in Maryland, rather than back where it is, the home company is, which might have a lower rate. But I don't see where it's raising taxes on anybody in Maryland, either in the prices or in a tax. And I would like someone to explain that if that's not correct. I've never heard anybody espousing that explain it.
I will talk to my tax experts and get those answers for you, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Alfred.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on Senator Young's question, I'm just trying to get my head around this. Obviously, we want to have a competitive small business market here in Maryland, but at the same time, it does feel like the burden is disproportionately on our locally owned small businesses. So, directed to the opposition panel, Mr. Chair, if I may, why shouldn't multinational corporations be required to pay a corporate tax here in Maryland?
I'll take a crack at that, Senator. I think what we've done here in Maryland to attempt to rectify, I think the issue people are getting at is tax planning, the transfer of incomes from one state to another. And I think that's when I had talked about in my testimony, the comptroller adopting these add back provisions, which they do in an attempt to rectify some of that. I do not know, and I cannot answer for you how well they work or do not work. I can tell you that that's what they're doing in an attempt to, it's very similar to what combined reporting does. And so I think with that in mind, I don't know that combined reporting would achieve what it is we would set out to do with that provision already in place. Again, I am not a tax expert. Happy to go back to those that we do utilize here at the chamber to answer your question, but that's my first crack at it.
Okay, and I think that's fair, Mr. Chair. Just one quick follow-up. I think it's fair, but we're all here for solutions. And so if combined reporting isn't the solution, what is the solution to make sure that we have fairness in our tax code? And that's
Yeah, I apologize. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. People can think about it, but I think that's what we're trying. And I believe the sponsor is trying to get to.
Yeah, I think, again, that I hit on my testimony. A lot of times when states are adopting combined reporting for these reasons, they're doing so in a comprehensive fashion. They're doing it as part of a tax reform, or I think it was mentioned that when they do institute combined reporting at the same time, they may or may not lower corporate income taxes. And I think that that's typically the way that this is instituted, and would probably be the best path forward from our standpoint here.
Okay.
Senator, if I can also just add to Mr. Griffin's comments. As Mr. Griffin mentioned, there are add back provisions. Corporate income tax is intended to be a tax that's in relation to a business's activities. And so add back rules is one way to address those issues. So that you can capture the activities of a business that's being done in Maryland. Other ways is a company has to have nexus in order to be subject to corporate income tax. And as a fallout of recent litigation with Wayfair, the standard for nexus is significantly lower in terms of what's considered enough for a company to be considered to be doing business in the state. So that's also an added mechanism. And lastly, there are other mechanisms such as within that are used to capture a lot of transactions that happen within companies.
Okay. I would appreciate a better accounting of that add back and how it's gone so far and exactly how that's added to the state's general fund. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing on this bill. Thank you, Chairman Pinsky. Thank you, all the witnesses. Thank you. All right, next up is Senate Bill 529. Senator Alfred.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, shifting gears, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, for the record, Senator Sen Alfred representing District 30. Bringing Senate Bill 529, which is by request of the Anne Arundel County Executive, and I believe our county executive is here as well as our mayor, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is a bill that we've kind of as a team been working on really since we adjourned last March. And I'd also like to give a tremendous amount of credit to Senator Beidel for working on this issue with us as well. The bills are rather simple. It's a small bill. It's a local bill. We have a visitors bureau here in Annapolis, Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel County for short, or the long version of that. It's funded primarily, about 98% of its funds come from our local hotel tax here in the city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. Folks might have read in the paper over the last year, there were some challenges in accounting, some expenditures that I think were not necessarily above board. Forensic accountants came in. The board recognized that there was a problem, brought in Maryland nonprofits, revised its bylaws, looking at its board member structure. The board responded appropriately, but we still feel like we need an extra layer of accountability and transparency here. And so that's the bill that you have in front of you. It's going to do a couple things. It's going to require additional reports for the use of the hotel tax to both the city of Annapolis officials and this General Assembly. It's going to allow the county's auditor to conduct an audit of the recipients of this funding. And it's going to allow the county and city to withhold funding if the Visit Annapolis fails to report or fails to remedy any findings in the aforementioned audit. So just, we have these bills these bills every year. This is a local version of what this committee's worked on many times before. Lastly, the bill, in addition to the hotel tax here in Anne Arundel and the city of Annapolis going to Visit Annapolis, it also goes to fund arts programming at the county level, and the county then brings some money back to the city of Annapolis. We would just like to carve out an additional 3% of the hotel tax that's raised in the city of Annapolis to go to the city's Art and Public Places Commission to have a direct line of funding for arts in the city. It's relatively net neutral in terms of budget. It's just using hotel taxes instead of general fund taxes for the city. So with that, Mr. Chair, I respectfully request a favorable report. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my partners in this, County Executive Pittman and Mayor Gavin Buckley.
Great. Sounds reasonable. County Executive, good to see you. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think Senator Alfred did a great job explaining it. She and Senator Bidle worked together on this, and I think it's a perfect solution to a problem that we had in the past. We hopefully won't in the future, but we have a lot of quasi-government organizations in the county and that use taxpayer dollars, and we feel like it's only right for this organization as well to be more transparent and give us an opportunity and our auditor an opportunity to look at what's going on and be able to hold them accountable if we need to. We think they're doing great work. We want them to continue great work. We're not changing the funding formulas at all here. It's simply a transparency effort and accountability. So I will let you have some time back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Mayor Buckley.
Thank you all. This is going to be so much easier than combined reporting. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members. It's a lot easier doing this than usually coming to see you, which is like a trip to the principal's office. And I did a lot of that in my youth. So this is a little more relaxing. I'm here to offer strong support for Senate Bill 529. I want to thank Senator Alfred for her putting this legislation forward because it's a great way for Annapolis to utilize our portion of the hotel tax revenue. This is not an additional tax burden, but rather a reallocation of existing tax funds. Again, we are not asking for an increase in taxes during this time of the pandemic. We are not asking Annapolis or Anne Arundel County taxpayers for any additional funding. We are simply taking those dollars brought to us by tourists who pay the hotel tax and allocating them to align better with our city's priorities. And the arts, as you know, by the mural on one of my restaurants, is a priority in the city of Annapolis. It's a huge priority for us, a big part of our identity. We're a historic city with an amazing, tragic, and beautiful story to tell. One of the ways we do this is through art, ever evolving, ever changing art. Our Art and Public Places Commission is a group of dedicated volunteers who work to approve murals, statues, and art programs, including our popular concert and Dancing on the Dock series. Some of you have probably enjoyed that. We are missing you guys partying like you used to party in the old days. We will bring all those back when we get to the other side of COVID. AIPPC selects our City Poet Laureate. They acquire and display art and facilitate the preservation of art objects and artifacts displayed in public places. Before I was mayor, I was a businessman in Annapolis and an advocate for public art. Public art is the great equalizer because you don't need money in your pocket or extra time to go to a place like a museum to enjoy public art. It's out there for every person to enjoy. I also know that the public art and the art and public places space is a priority for this legislature. You could see on social media and in our neighborhood how grateful the residents of Annapolis were when the Thurgood Marshall statue was returned to Lawyers Mall after the recent construction project. Public art is important and it deserves adequate funding. More than ever, municipalities need help. Lacking a federal response to the pandemic, the lowest levels of government were left to cover the costs of things like COVID testing, and in Annapolis, funding recovery zones to help our small businesses. Of course, CARES funding helped, but we did this all at a time when we were not receiving revenue from our usual sources due to the shutdown. We don't receive sales tax revenue. Reallocating hotel tax revenue will greatly help the city of Annapolis. It's an honor to talk to you all. I urge a yes vote on SB 529. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the panel or the senator? Terrific. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here. Okay. All right. Well, here's why I apologize for the next 4 bills because they're all mine. But we're going to try to move through them quickly. The first one, 533, Horse Racing Maryland Bred Fund Advisory Committee membership. All this bill does is bring the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen Association, having a member on the group. The Breeders Association has agreed to this. I said I wouldn't take the bill unless everybody was kumbaya, and I think we're there. I think there's also an amendment coming to verify what it is to be actually a Maryland bred horse. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the first witness, Bob Enton.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Robert Enton on behalf of the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. I agree with the chairman, as I always do, that this is a good bill, a simple bill, and all it does is carry out what an agreement amongst the parties that the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association would have a position on this board. I don't believe there's any opposition whatsoever. I know that the Maryland Horse Breeders Association has an amendment and the MTHA has no problem with the amendment. So we'd urge the committee to pass the bill and with the amendment that's being offered. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Weintraub.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Jason Weintraub on behalf of the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. Nothing more to add. Just appreciate Chairman Gazzoni for introducing the bill and the committee for your support.
Thank you. Alan Foreman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I would just echo the comments of the chairman and Bob and Jason. This is an easy fix, but it's a fix that's warranted. In the past 8 years, the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, working with the Maryland Horse Breeders and the Maryland Jockey Club, have been providing funding to enhance the ownership and breeding of horses in Maryland, particularly the ownership of Maryland bred horses. And it's through those financial enhancements, most recently a historic agreement among the parties in 2019, where the MTHA provided substantial additional funding. There was a recognition that the advisory committee that is appointed by statute and makes the recommendations that are adopted by the Racing Commission had stakeholders from each of the industry groups except for the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. And as a part of that 2019 agreement, the parties agreed that there should be a seat for MTHA. There was a request made to the Maryland Racing Commission to appoint a representative to fill such a seat. And the commission was advised by the Attorney General that without an act of the General Assembly, that seat could not be created, thus the need for this legislation. So collectively, the industry asked for a favorable report. And in doing so, I want to thank Chairman Gazzone, the members of the Budget and Tax Committee, the members of the Senate for your ongoing support for a racing industry that is rebuilding itself, has a great future, and one that is a vital treasure to the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the panel? Thank you all very much. Next up is 534, income tax credit, wineries and vineyards sunset extension. This is a credit that's been around since, I think, 2012. It's a 25% credit for eligible capital expenditures that are made in connection with establishing new wineries or making improvements to wineries and vineyards. It's a $500,000 limit. And it is, I think, as of last year, pretty well utilized. So there a lot of dollars being put into improvements and growth in the industry, and this is an extension of a sunsetting provision. First up is Pat Roddy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Patrick Roddy. I'm here today representing the Maryland Wineries Association. First of all, we'd like to thank the chairman for sponsoring this extension of this important credit. You've heard a lot today, some today, about large corporations, multinational corporations. This credit is aimed specifically at Maryland-only businesses. It's affordable, efficient, and has paid multiple dividends for the state. As the chairman related to you, it's affordable because it's limited. It has a $500,000 cap and can only be used by people who it can only be used up to 25% of the eligible expenditures. It's efficient because it targets capital expenditures, which allows wineries to grow and open. And secondly, it has other benefits. Number one is there is not a piece of marketing that you pay for through appropriations to the Department of Commerce and others that don't feature Maryland wines and Maryland wineries as part of the reason to visit Maryland, or for Marylanders to visit parts of Maryland that they have not seen before. Wine is a part of Maryland's image, and the small businesses that bring that to us are helping build that Maryland brand. Since this tax credit started in 2013, Maryland has now produced every year 100,000 more bottles of wine than they did in 2013. This speaks to the support that the General Assembly and the state have given to wineries, which includes this tax credit. If you look at those 100,000 bottles of wine, gallons of wine, they're gallons, not bottles, gallons of wine, they generate over $500,000 in sales tax annually and over $600,000 when you factor in the excise tax. So again, this is also has a positive ROI, not only for agricultural preservation and for the other things that other policies that Maryland has put forth, but also pays for itself in terms of tax revenue. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, following me are Maryland wineries who will explain to you how they've used the credit and how it's benefited their businesses to grow.
Thank you very much. Finn DeFord.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Phineas DeFord with Bordy Vineyards. Bordy is Maryland's oldest winery. 2020 marked our 75th year in business. My family has farmed our land in Baltimore County for 5 generations, and I represent the 3rd generation to be actively involved in the winery. My grandfather was a grain and livestock farmer who in 1965 planted his first 5 acres of grapevines as a way of diversifying operations here. That decision, coupled with the purchase of Bordy in 1980, is ultimately what saved our farm. Today, we farm in 2 locations, Long Green Vineyard in our home farm in Baltimore County and South Mountain Vineyard in Frederick County. Both farms are in permanent preservation through the Maryland Environmental Trust. Together, the farms total about 360 acres, of which 50 are dedicated to growing grapes. Before COVID, we had 23 full-time employees, and I'm proud to say that all of them are still with us today. And also prior to COVID, we were receiving nearly 80,000 visitors each year, making Bordy one of the most visited destinations in Baltimore County. One of the things we're most proud of here is our Thursday afternoon farmers markets held each year from May through September, where we invite local producers to sell their goods at the winery. It's a wonderful way for the community to enjoy the place and relax. Owning a winery and a vineyard is a capital-intensive business. There's an old saying in our industry: if you want to make $1 million in the wine business, you start with $2 million. A startup winery can expect to spend $15,000 per acre in vineyard establishment costs, $100,000 in vineyard equipment, $1,000 for each oak barrel, upwards of $30,000 for each stainless tank, not to mention the costs of building a winery and a tasting room, all before the first bottle of wine is sold. Even established wineries like Bordy are constantly replanting and expanding vineyard acreage, purchasing vineyard equipment, buying new barrels and other winemaking supplies. The list goes on, which is why the winery and vineyard tax credit is so critical to our industry. Bordy has applied for and received tax credits each year that the program has been in existence. In 2013, we completed construction of a new winery building, including the purchase of 32 new stainless steel tanks, for which we received a tax credit of nearly $113,000. The improvements in wine quality as a result of this $2 million investment were dramatic and immediately evident. Since then, our wines have gone on to win numerous prestigious awards in local, national, and international wine competitions. As Bordy continues to grow, we will need to invest in vineyard expansion and additional winemaking equipment. And knowing that the winery and vineyard tax credit is here to help offset some of those costs is a huge incentive. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to speak in favor of Senate Bill 534, and I ask that the committee vote in favor of expanding the winery and vineyard tax credit for another 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Butts?
Yes, hello. My name is Robert Butts. I'm the owner of Windridge Farm and Windridge Vineyards, and I'm testifying also in support of HB 474. I'm a lifelong second generation row crop farmer in Montgomery County. And along with my 3 brothers, we planted our first wine grapes in 2011 as an effort to diversify our farm to respond to increasing urbanization in our county, Montgomery. Today, we produce approximately 5,000 cases of wine from our fruit. And while our vineyard is small compared to the size of our row crop farm, the revenues from the wine business have now surpassed those of our legacy farming businesses. I think this highlights the ability of farm wineries to produce meaningful revenues on relatively small acreage, which can help preserve agriculture in more urban counties like Montgomery. Put this in perspective, gross revenues from an acre of corn can be around $1,000. Gross revenue from an acre of grapes can be around $12,000. And those same grapes in a $30 a bottle of wine can be about $100,000 per acre. We use the winery and vineyard tax credit to offset a portion of the costs associated with the construction of our new winery and tasting room facility. And the tax credit was in fact an important part of our ability to afford the project. This building is obviously essential to our ability to make and sell wine. And the construction of this facility has allowed us to make the transition from being just a grape grower selling fruit to others to being a complete retail winery. This transition also allows us to now employ an additional staff of 25 full and part-time employees. And additionally, because our guests come to the farm to enjoy more than just wine, our business supports a multitude of local vendors. More than economics, though, we're proud to have built a business that showcases Montgomery County agriculture and provides a venue for citizens to enjoy the Montgomery Ag Reserve, as evidenced from the fact that Bethesda Magazine just rated us best place for an afternoon date. Anyway, the vineyard and wine tax is an important tool to enhance the growth of Maryland wineries and is worthy of continuation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Susan White?
Well, hello there. My name is Susan White, and I am here to support the extension of the existing tax credit for Maryland wineries and vineyards. I'm the owner of Robin Hill Farm and Vineyards, which is in Brandywine, located in southern Prince George's County. And we have been farming here since 1955. We are a family business and we are committed to keeping our farm in agriculture. We started out as tobacco farmers, hog farmers. We grew a 100-acre nursery, and we've been involved in agritourism for over 50 years. In 2014, we planted our vineyard, and in 2017, we opened our on-farm winery. Our winery does produce approximately 1,500 cases of wine, and we employ 12 employees. And as Finn was talking earlier, the winery and vineyard is a huge financial investment. So the money that we've received from the winery tax credit has helped us to purchase vineyard equipment like a hedger and a leaf puller, which is extremely important in managing the canopy, because as we all know, good wine, or great wine, I should say, starts in the vineyard. We've also been able to purchase some equipment in the winery, which has helped to improve the quality of our wine. And in doing so, we've been able to achieve awards and medals in local wine competitions, as well as international wine competitions. We are part of the Legacy Wine Trail. So right here in southern Prince George's County, there are 4 on-farm wineries within a 9-mile radius. Our winery attracts guests from Maryland, the surrounding states, and tourists that are visiting our nation's capital. So they get to come down and see, spend a day in the country and see a working farm while they're sipping their wine. We do support other local businesses. We host small business Saturdays where other vendors can come in and sell their wares. We sell local products at our winery as well. And we do support or tell our customers to visit the other local ag tourisms in the area. We've been featured by Experience Prince George's, the Maryland Office of Tourism, Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission, Maryland Public Television's Maryland Farm and Harvest, and Farm Her Television. So our next project is going to be purchasing an automated bottling line, which could cost us over $100,000. So we are hoping that the future tax credits are going to help defray the cost of these improvements. So I do ask for the continuation of these tax credits, which will not only help us, but it will assist new and existing wineries to achieve higher standards and quality wines, which in turn will improve the name for Maryland wine and Maryland agriculture. So thank you for your time. And I do welcome you all to come down and visit our winery. So I hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much. All right, the next bill is Senate Bill 538. This is community college tuition and residency waiver funding. So I'm going to read you a list real quick. And these are representative of individuals who the state of Maryland has asked the community colleges, our 16 community colleges, to give tuition to, which of course obviously is a cost to them. It is, as many would say, kind of an unfunded mandate. The list, though, is an important one. Foster care recipients, unaccompanied homeless youth, active duty members of the U.S. Armed Forces, spouses and children of active duty members of the Armed Forces, honorably discharged veterans, members of the National Guard, sons and daughters of state or local public safety officers killed in the line of duty, individuals with disabilities, senior citizens, students enrolled in manpower shortage program. Bottom line is, as a policy, I think providing access to education for all those individuals makes a lot of sense. But the reality is it does cost the community colleges to provide that education. So this $10 million would help defray that cost, split among all the community colleges, so they can continue to keep providing it and do so in a reasonable economic way. With that, I have one witness, Mary Bolt.
Good afternoon, Mary Bolt, president of Cecil College. Thank you, Chairman Gazzone, for sponsoring this bill. On behalf of Maryland's 16 community colleges, I'm speaking in support of Senate Bill 538. As Senator Ferguson stated recently in an interview for the 2020 Maryland Community College Trustee Leadership Conference, community colleges are the lifeblood of economic opportunity, and community colleges are essential. For many years, the legislation adds to the growing list of very deserving Maryland citizens eligible to receive tuition and often fee waivers at community colleges. The designated groups eligible for the waivers are certainly deserving of free tuition. However, the community colleges have not received revenue to offset this expense. A tuition waiver does not mean the cost of educating students disappears. Unfortunately, the costs are either absorbed by other students in the form of tuition increases, or programs and services are underfunded and sometimes disregarded for lack of revenue. Tuition waivers also threaten the ability of colleges to be able to enhance select and unique programs of study impacted by this loss of revenue. Mandated tuition waivers constitute an annual loss of $10 million in revenue for the lifeblood of economic opportunity, Maryland's 16 community colleges. Unfunded waivers drive up costs for all students and thus undermine the critical community college mission of affordability. Passing this legislation and providing $10 million to support state-mandated tuition and residency waivers will create sustainable public policy for these deserving student populations and Maryland community colleges. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony to the committee and for your continued support of Maryland community colleges. And on behalf of the Maryland Association of Community Colleges, I urge your favorable support. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Great. All right, thank you very much. Senate Bill 539, Income Tax Credit Food Donation Pilot Program. So this program started a couple years ago. It's sunsetting in 21. We'd like to extend it for a couple of years. This is where Senator Middleton and Delegate Jamison started this up. The idea is that, when fresh foods are donated to food banks, they should receive something for it. And in this case, it's up to a tax credit up to $5,000 a year. There's no more than $100,000 available for this credit. I think over the last couple of years, it hasn't been completely utilized. I think it's part of the pilot still going on. But quite frankly, it's a great thing when fresh vegetables are available and can be distributed. And I know we have some folks here from the food bank, and we're going to start with Nancy Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the Budget and Tax Committee. My name is Nancy Smith, and I'm with the Maryland Food Bank. I'm writing on behalf of the Fair Farms Maryland in support of Senate Bill 0539. It's sponsored by our chairman, Senator Gazzoni, which extends the food donation pilot program signed into law by Governor Hogan in 2017. In 2010, the Maryland Food Bank started a small little program on the Eastern Shore. We called it Farm to Food Bank. We engaged farmers across the state to provide hungry Marylanders with fresh local produce. By combining field gleanings, donations, and contract growing, these farms have supplied us with over 8.5 million pounds of high quality, nutritious food to communities in need across our state. During a time where COVID is front and center in our state, the Farm to Food Bank plays an increasing important role in our hunger relief efforts. Due to the pandemic's economic impact, our year-over-year statewide distribution efforts between March and December have increased by 89%, 51 million pounds versus 27 million pounds. More families are turning to the food bank for help, and many for the first time. The Maryland Food Bank wants to ensure that the food we provide these households is nutrient-rich, supports a healthy immune system to keep those we serve fed, healthy during the pandemic. We're thankful for the strong partnership with our farmers and local farms who continue to donate farm fresh produce to us. Without the Farm to Food Bank program, many families we serve would not otherwise be able to afford fresh produce. The program is a win-win. It's a win for the farmers, the food bank, and most importantly, for the people and the ones who are receiving the food. The tax incentive program for our farmer has grown over the years since more counties can participate now. Our local farmers are truly the lifeline for keeping the communities we serve fed and healthy. Supporting our farmers and the essential role they play in Maryland Food Bank's hunger relief simply is the right thing to do. So the Maryland Food Bank stands behind our state farmers and their work in enhancing Maryland's charitable food distribution stream, keeping our neighbors healthy. We stand behind this bill. We urge the committee to adopt a favorable report of Senate Bill 0539. I will say that we would have, the MDA promotes this program, and the farmers during COVID-19, it kind of prevented outreach to some of the farmers' meetings. But I know for a fact that coming up this year, this will increase significantly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Colby Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Colby Ferguson on behalf of Maryland Farm Bureau, and we come in support of Senate Bill 539. As you've already heard, this bill really is just to extend a program that we think is very, very beneficial. You know, we have farmers that work hard and produce food, and they have many times where they'll have contracts on sweet corn or vegetables, and they'll have overproduction for that week. And so having the opportunity to work with the gleaning programs to get those fresh products to the food banks is very beneficial. But it's a donation, and there's no federal assistance. There's no federal programs that allow that donation to that cost of production. You know, they don't make it for free. To be able to get some of that money back, and it you know, if they were very profitable entities, you know, very rich farmers, it would be one thing. But you know, farmers struggle to make a living every day as well. And so this is a one way to give a little bit back. Obviously, I'd like to see this expanded in the future because our farmers do their best to make sure that people are fed. And I think extending this is just one way to do that. So with that, I encourage a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Shelby Calm.
Hello, yes, good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Shelby Calm, and on behalf of the Fair Farms Campaign, I'm speaking in support of your legislation, Senate Bill 539, which extends the food donation pilot program originally signed into law by Governor Hogan in 2017. The Fair Farms Campaign of Waterkeepers Chesapeake brings together consumers, farmers, public health professionals, and conservationists to advocate for a food system that is equitable, fair to farmers, invests in homegrown healthy foods, and restores our waterways. We are a growing movement of over 35,000 Marylanders and close to 200 partners across the state. The continuation of the food donation pilot program would ensure that low-income Marylanders have greater access to locally grown, nutrient-dense food, while supporting our local farming communities during this challenging time. Throughout the program's tenure, donations have only continued to increase, and in 2019 alone, nearly 128,000 pounds of food donations were made through the program. Senate Bill 539 is urgently needed at this time. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen an increase in food insecurity. From March through June of 2020, 4 in 10 people who visited food banks reported doing so for the first time. Given this increase in demand for food assistance during a time when public health is our top priority, it's critical that we provide those frequenting food banks and pantries with nutrient-dense food that supports a healthy immune system. At the same time, farmers have had a challenging year. The continuation of this program provides financial value to our local farming communities and acknowledges the essential role they play in keeping our communities fed. As Nancy Smith said, this bill is a win-win-win. It's a win for local farmers, a win for reducing hunger, and a win for public health. For these reasons, we stand strongly behind this bill and urge the committee to adopt a favorable report of Senate Bill 539. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? You know, I was just looking, I didn't even notice this. The last 4 bills that were mine, 3 of them were sort of farm related. You'd think I was a farmer. But I'm a city guy. I think it's a good indication, I think, of the way we feel about things on this committee, that we're one Maryland and it all goes together. And we need all aspects of our community. Okay, I think that's it. No questions. Very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to a bill from the administration. This is the Maryland Environmental Services Office Boards and Directors and Responsibilities. Senate Bill 575. And I believe Mr. Mitchell is going to kick this off for us. Kiefer?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kiefer Mitchell, Chief Legislative Officer for Governor Hogan. I'm joined by Andrew Castley, Senior Advisor, and Aaron Chase, Deputy Legislative Officer. We're here in testimony in support of Senate Bill 575, Environmental Services, Officers, Board, Directors, and Responsibilities Alterations. Since taking office, Governor Hogan has pushed to restore integrity and accountability to our state government. Governor Hogan is committed to bringing much needed systemic reform to MES. As issues with MES came to light over the summer, the governor took immediate steps to institute a series of reforms. He spoke with the new director, Dr. Charles Glass, about taking immediate action, which included comprehensive top to bottom review of the agency. The governor appointed retired federal district judge, chief judge, Frederick Smolkin, to serve as the board secretary. This was to bring immediate accountability and oversight to the MES board. He also directed the Department of Budget and Management to launch and conduct a thorough audit, which remains ongoing. The audit is in addition one that MES conducted, is in addition to the one that MES has conducted, which resulted in MES making changes to the expense reimbursement policy, among other immediate changes. In September, the governor sent a letter to the presiding officers and pledged to work with the legislature on bipartisan reforms to the governing structure and oversight of this entity. Senate Bill 575 is the administration's bill that the governor has introduced to bring the changes to MES, and it is critical that we work together to get MES reformed. Additionally, in December, the governor established the State Transparency and Accountability Reform, or the STAR Commission, which is looking at a number of states' quasi-public entities, including MES. The commission will work to develop a set of best practices that could be uniformly applied to all quasi-public agencies to ensure the appropriate oversight, transparency, and accountability and ethics standards that should be put in place. The commission final report is due by December 1st, 2021. Maryland deserves and expects all state government agencies and entities to be representing their interests fairly and honestly. Thank you for this opportunity. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Aaron Chase, who will walk through the specifics of our bill.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, my name is Aaron Chase with the Governor's Legislative Office. I'm here today to walk you through Senate Bill 575, Maryland Environmental Service Officers, Board of Directors and Responsibilities, alterations, and the structural changes to the officers and Board of Directors that we are proposing. The major change that we make to the officers of the service in Senate Bill 575 is that we remove the Deputy Director as an officer of MES and therefore also as a member on the Board of Directors. The bill does allow the board to appoint a Deputy Director if they so choose, but there is no requirement that MES have a Deputy Director. Regardless of if one is appointed, the Deputy Director does not serve as a member of the board. The bill expands the size of the Board of Directors to allow for a more diverse set of views. Our bill adds both the Secretary of the Department of Budget and Management and the State Treasurer to the board, as well as an ethics expert and a private sector seat that is reserved for an individual with water or wastewater management that specifically has financial management expertise. Our bill does allow the Director of MES to remain a member of the board, but only in a non-voting role. Given that the director is the head of the service, we believe that they should be permitted to be an active participant in the board's discussions to ensure that the operational views of the service are represented. This means that the board of directors will increase from 9 members to 12, but only 11 members will have voting powers. With regards to appointments, Senate Bill 575 requires Senate advice and consent for all board appointees. Additionally, our bill will permit the governor to reappoint his recent board appointees, including retired federal judge Frederick Smolkin. Senate Bill 575 also institutes staggered terms and term limits. The implementation of these provisions will bring new perspectives to the board on a regular basis and allow for healthy, regular rates of turnover. As was previously stated, the Hogan administration remains fully committed to restoring and bringing transparency and good government reforms to all entities in the administration. Thank you for your time. We look forward to working with the committee to pass Senate Bill 575. And at this time, I will turn it over to Andrew Casserly to discuss the second part of our bill.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosapep, and esteemed committee members. For the record, my name is Andrew Casserly, and speaking in support of Senate Bill 575. While Aaron explained the first objective of this legislation in making structural changes to the board at MES, the second objective is to institute a number of accountability and transparency measures. I will quickly review 7 of those measures. First, MES will be required to adopt policies related to expense reimbursements, travel, severance, and bonuses for employees and board members. Next, the board will conduct an annual performance evaluation of the director. In addition, the criteria and procedures for this evaluation must be posted on the MES website. Next, MES will implement a conflict of interest policy for all board members. Every 3 years, an independent assessment of the board's functions and operations will be required and must be posted on the MES website. This audit will investigate any misallocated funds or unauthorized spending. A copy of the audit will be submitted to the governor, the legislature, DBM, and posted on the MES website. This bill will increase the current required ethics and financial disclosure process from a limited disclosures to full disclosure for all board members. And lastly, this legislation requires the submission of a detailed budget to DBM that includes sources of revenue. We are confident that the combination of structural, accountability, and transparency measures within this bill will allow Maryland Environmental Service to move forward under their new leadership in an efficient, effective, and conscientious manner while serving the needs of the state. And with that, we humbly ask you for a favorable report for Senate Bill 757.
Thank you very much. I want to recognize also Senator Lamb has joined us from EHE. He, of course, was intimately involved in the committee and chaired the joint committee that reviewed much of what went on at Maryland Environmental Services. So I'll open up for any questions, certainly including Senator Lamb. If he's got any comments. Oh, Senator Lamb.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you, Chairman Gazzoni. Oops, let me lower my hand. So appreciate the administration bringing forward this legislation. I know there was legislation, I think last week, that Senator McCray actually brought forward to also institute some reforms for MES, and really in response to what had taken place last year as well. What I'm trying to understand here is that there are some differences in these provisions. One of them has to do with the ability for the director or a retiring director to take severance with them. From last year, I think many of us had heard from folks, and probably the most appalling piece of this was the fact that severance was taken to shift from one state agency to another. This bill does not prohibit such severances. And can you explain why?
Senator, thank you for the question. We have met with the sponsor of that legislation, and what we found is when we began looking at their measures within their legislation and comparing them to the measures that we had taken with our legislation, we found that there was a lot of similarities between the two. And we in our meeting with them, we said that we were amicable to really looking for ways that we could try to support each other. If we could put together a bipartisan effort to put together these reforms, we're more than willing to work with the sponsor of that bill.
So what happened from that discussion?
We had that discussion this morning. That bill is being heard, I believe, today on the other side of the street as a cross file, And what we're looking to do is after that hearing, really sitting down and hashing out where there are the similarities that we both can agree on, and looking to see if we can find some common ground on the areas that we had not included in each other's bills.
So with regards to this provision, do you disagree with the provision in the other bill to prohibit such severances? Is that what your current position is?
No, what I said is we're willing to sit down and meet with the sponsors of the other legislation to see if we can find some common ground.
But you didn't include that in this version that you're presenting to us now, right?
No, Senator, it's not.
Okay, because there are a few other provisions too that were in the other or not in this, including board trainings, recordings of board meetings, requiring the board to have BPW approval for expenses above $25,000. Would you be opposed to considering those and supporting those provisions as well? Because those are in the other bill, but not in this.
Senator, we're open certainly to discussing with the sponsors of House Bill 2 and Senate Bill 2 about these provisions. I think when you put the bills together, they create one really great omnibus bill to discuss reforms and address those reforms for MES. I think both bills have great provisions, and maybe one bill is missing some great things and the other bill is missing the other great things. So I think if we work together with the senator and the House sponsor, that we can come up with a really great, promising bill together that kind of merges the two bills together.
Okay. Well, I encourage you to.
I just want to, if I can just jump in too and say, obviously now these bills are in the possession of the committee, and we'll be working to make sure that we get the best product in all of this. And that's sort of the bottom line. We're happy to work with all sides to get that accomplished.
And Senator, let me just add, Governor's on record with a letter to the presiding officers of August 18th, committing to working together with the legislature to reform. So Senator Lamb, the questions that you have, we stand by that commitment to work with the senators, this committee, and the House to reform MES.
Okay. Yeah, I would encourage you to look at that, particularly provisions that are in one version and not the other, to see what can be brought over. I think some of the provisions that are absent in this version are pretty important when you compare it to the provisions that were in the prior version. Thank you.
Any other questions for this panel? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for joining us, Senator Lamb.
Sure, thank
you. Senator Edwards, 447, Historic Revitalization Tax Credit, Certified Historic Structure and Single Family Owner Occupied Residence Definitions. And you today are the winner of the longest title.
I'm going to say that real fast, Mr. Chairman.
I think I tried to.
It's the longest title, but it'll be one of the shortest testimonies anyway. What this does puts in the Historic Revitalization Tax Credit Program, there are some buildings on state DNR property, and this would include a structure that is located on property owned by DNR or one of its units, is occupied by a person under an agreement with DNR by which the person pays to rehabilitate the structure as a condition of occupancy, and qualifies to be designated under the current law as a certified historic structure, or is eligible to be listed to that and that. But what it does is saves the state some money. Actually, we'll get some things fixed up and preserved quicker. There are historical buildings on some of these DNR properties or that they own or manage, and I think it's a good bill. Doesn't cost the state a whole lot of money. If you look at the fiscal note, as a matter of fact, if you factor in what it saves, because the state wouldn't have to pay money to fix it up, probably saves the state money. So I would ask for approval of Senate Bill 447. I think James McKittrick from DNR and
Alan
here, and they can explain it a little bit more thorough.
Mr. McKittrick. Thank you, Senator.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. James McKittrick, Department of Natural Resources, here to testify in support of Senate Bill 447 with, I believe he has the longest bill title, as Senator Edwards referenced. The senator, hit all the points. This is a small cost for a very significant impact on 42 of our creatorship properties. You have a written testimony. This is a priority of the department, and in fact, a recommendation from the governor's Maryland Outdoor Recreation Economic Commission as a way to bring our outdoor recreation into the 21st century. So happy to help answer any questions the committee has.
Ms. Cowan?
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon, my name is Ellie Cowan. I'm the Director of Advocacy at Preservation Maryland, and I'm here to offer our strong support of SB 447. The resident curatorship program was started in 1982 as a way to preserve state-owned historic resources. DNR is actually the largest landowner in the state, and it owns many historically significant sites and structures. And while some of those are used as museums or for park operations and staff housing, given the realities of tight budgets, not all of the historic structures in the department's portfolio can be maintained. And that's where this resident curatorship program comes in. And so rather than allow these historically significant properties to fall into ruin, the program offers them to the public for long-term lease in return for restoration work. And so the curators are responsible for all of the costs associated with restoration and maintenance of the property, but they receive life tenancy free from rent in exchange for all of that work and expenditure. And since its inception, the program includes over 40 properties throughout the state and has leveraged over $11.6 million in private investment to the state-owned real estate. Unfortunately, just because of the way that it's written, currently the historic revitalization tax credit, what a certified historic structure is, these structures don't fall within that definition. So this bill would simply correct that, allow these people who are already, investing in these state-owned properties, in preserving historic structures across the state, would be able to access the historic tax credit program. We think it's a fantastic bill and urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the senator or the witnesses? Thank you very much. Senator McCray, Senate Bill 477, Enoch Pratt Free Library operating hours and funding.
Senator, I'm waiting for him to come back in.
Okay.
Oh, here he is. He's coming.
Great. Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's a busy day. First, just wanted to oblige. I was over in JPR, so sorry, apologies for my tardiness. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, member of the committee, members of the committee. I come to you on behalf of Senate Bill 477. Senate Bill 477 just asked for a $3 million appropriation to kind of keep going something that has already been established that works. Making sure that we extend the hours of operation and extend the days in our respective libraries. It's a grant program that comes out of it, and I'm proud to be joined by our librarian, our lead librarian, Heidi Daniel, Gordon Krabby from the Enoch Pratt Free Library to testify on why this bill is so important. And just wanted to say thank you again, Mr. Chair, and apologies for the tardiness. Hope you all will be supportive of Senate Bill 477.
Thank you, Senator. Daniel.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Senator McCray. Thank you, Chairman and Vice Chairman and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee for having me here today. I'm Heidi Daniel, President and CEO of the Enoch Pratt Free Library State Library Resource Center, and I'm respectfully requesting your support for Senate Bill 477, the Enoch Pratt Free Library Operating Hours and Funding. 5 years ago, the legislature saw fit to pass funding for expanded hours, which has allowed us a 30% increase in hours across our city with stabilized hours all across the system. And in addition, it allowed us to expand our evening hours at 3 geographic anchors in the city, our Pennsylvania Avenue, North Avenue location, which of course was in the heart of the uprising, our Southeast Anchor Library in Highlandtown, and our Central Library, which services the entire city as well as the state of Maryland. Feedback from our community members and users have been overwhelmingly positive and grateful, and the extra hours allows the library to have more hours for our social workers, our lawyers, our after-school programming, our job assistance programs, and of course, usage of our meeting room by our staff and our community. Pratt has seen increases in material usage, programs, and program attendance all across the city. During FY19, which is the first full year that we were able to get data that the hours were implemented, Pratt neighborhood branches saw a 9-year high in material usage and turned a long downward trend in material usage around. We were seeing an average of a 12% increase a day in FY20 and expected us to be on track for increases in visits and increases in programming by about 24%. But of course, then COVID interrupted our progress. And although COVID-19 has shut our doors, as well as most libraries across the state of Maryland, the work of the Pratt has continued because our city has continued to need us. During this time, we've offered sidewalk service at all of our locations, online programs, curriculum support materials for our students statewide, including online tutoring. Pratt Library has also served the city of Baltimore, where almost 40% of our households lack reliable internet access, which I know you know is critical. To help with addressing this, the Pratt Library has started new initiatives, including drive-in Wi-Fi at 8 of our locations, community Wi-Fi through hotspots installed in our mobile units that drive around the city, hotspot lending and Chromebook lending, including lending of Chromebooks and hotspots in the area around Pennsylvania Avenue, North Avenue, which is combined with one-on-one assistance of a staff member to help create a technology roadmap, get people permanent technology and internet connections, and form support groups where people have done everything from become contact tracers to find jobs and learn how to navigate transportation during this time. We've also built a point to multi-point network in the southeast area of our city in partnership with Digital Harbor and Waves Foundation to provide free in-home internet access to 50 households. Additionally, Enoch Pratt Free Library has continued its role as the State Library Resource Center. We provide unique resources to students and the general population all across the state of Maryland. And even while most of our libraries in Maryland have been closed due to the pandemic, we've found ways to partner and bolster each other's programming, continue to share collections through the Maryland Interlibrary Loan Operation, which is operated out of the Pratt Library. And the state library role has continued for us. We've continued to offer training. We're going to be taking the lead on statewide training for trauma-informed responsiveness, as well as race and equity training. Our IT department also has a statewide role with the Sailor Network, and we provide infrastructure and network support across the state. So while this bill is specific to Enoch Pratt Free Library, it does have statewide support, as you'll see in your letters of support. The expanded hours funding allows Enoch Pratt Free Library to continue to do this critical work and to be a strong partner in both a stronger Baltimore and a better Maryland. It also allows continued employment of approximately 80 positions and keeps our hours consistent in the evening for those who need them, particularly students and working adults. In closing, I thank you for your continued support and request a favorable committee report on Senate Bill 477. At this time, I'm joined by Gordon Krabbe, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. So you do a lot of great stuff, no question. This $3 million, though, it gets you 80 employees. That would, I'm just trying to understand exactly what we're getting here for the $3 million. What are the citizens getting?
Yeah, so it funds about 80 positions. That's matched by, and I'll ask Gordon to jump in if you have specific questions around the budget, but it also is matched by the city of Baltimore, which it puts in around $750,000 a year to help us with this. So those employees allow us to have our hours extended into the evenings and weekends. So we were able to offer for the first time 6 days across the city, as well as 7 days out of our central library, the State Library Resource Center. And it also gives us a little bit more materials, or it has in the past. It probably won't moving forward just because it'll be without inflation, primarily focused on staff positions. I'd ask Gordon if he would like to chime in and add anything that I might have forgotten in regards to what the 3 million covers, but primarily.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, no, I appreciate that, and he can jump in, but and I apologize that I haven't read the bill yet. But so it sounds like you're doing some of those extended hours already. Is that?
Yes, because of the legislation you passed 5 years ago, it's funded us to continue to do those hours. Without this funding, we would lose around.
But it stops right now?
Yes, it stops in the next fiscal, at the end of the next
I
fiscal.
apologize. I got it. Okay.
Yep.
Any questions? There was someone else signed up, but I don't think we're seeing him in the room. Donald.
Gordon Krabby's here, Mr. Chair. He's just here for questions if folks have.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. Yeah, I knew he was there, but I have one more person, Donald Stolkovic, but I don't think staff sees him in the room.
I do not.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Mr. Krabby, appreciate you being here. Senator, thank you for the bill. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all very much.
Yep, thank you.
All right, certainly not least, but definitely last, Senator Simon Ayer. Senate Bill 510.
Well, it's a pleasure to be before you again. Over the years, I've loved to do many things with my 7 kids, but mall shopping was not one of them, especially during the back to school tax week when it was so crowded. The sales tax free week has been very popular among our constituents for items of clothing and footwear that is $100 or less, and backpacks and book bags for $40 or less. So many families have benefited from this wonderful idea. So when one of my constituents approached me and asked me why material to make clothes was not part of the clothing sales tax-free week, I couldn't give a good reason. She shared with me how many people love to sew for their student children and how it should really be part of the back to school sales week. Then I started thinking about my own mom who would make clothes for our grandkids and realized if the purpose is to help those going back to school, then sewing material should be included as well. I will say up front, I will not benefit from this program because I don't sew, nor would my kids wear anything that I tried to sew. But that being said, there are many talented people who make beautiful clothes, and they should be allowed to participate in this targeted and modestly funded program. Therefore, my bill simply adds sewing items used to make clothes to the back to school sales tax-free list for items less than $100. This includes fabrics, thread, zippers, tape, elastic, but it would not include things like sewing machines and other tools. That's the bill, and I ask that we allow someone willing to make clothes the same benefit to someone who is willing to brave the harsh elements of a mall. I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Senator, what was the fiscal note on this?
They had a one-time fiscal note for the comptroller, and then they said basically they couldn't determine how many people would do it, and they kind of gave an example.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Seems like it would be pretty small. Ms. Schwartzman?
Yep. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for your time and willingness to hear me speak. This is my first time participating in this type of process, so I'm a little nervous.
Don't be.
My name's
I'm a little
Danielle
nervous too every day.
My name's Danielle Swartzman, and I'm a mother, a wife, a hobby sewist, and a PhD economist, in addition to a lifelong Maryland resident. In my limited free time, I do enjoy sewing. It's something that I was fortunate enough to be taught by my grandmother as I was growing up. And it's a tradition I like to continue to maintain my connection to her, even though she's no longer here with us. Every year, Maryland has Maryland tax-free days, and it's always kind of struck me that the things we need to make clothes are not included within the tax-free items. So I just showing up here to support support this bill. I'm definitely voting favorable, as it would be a great opportunity for other people like me who enjoy sewing and making clothes for themselves and their children to reap the benefits too of the program. So thank you.
Great. You did terrific.
Thanks.
Questions for the senator or his witness? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, that concludes our hearing for today. Tomorrow, of course, we have all the subcommittees, operating subcommittees meeting at, I think, 1:30. And other than that, I think we're good. We won't be voting until next week. And of course, as you know, we held back on that, but we'll have probably next Tuesday a fairly large voting session to catch up on all the work that we've been doing. Anybody have any questions other than that? All right.